before. Oh, here. I found it. I got it. I'm okay. Here's your coat. Thumb.
Okay.
Here's your hat, Mom. Jack, here comes.
Says he's not old enough to need a shellfish license.
Here.
You going, Jack?
No, Jack's not digging today.
You're not gonna dig today, Jack?
Jack's taking the day off. I'm putting on my chapstick, and then I'm going to put on my
Beautiful now?
no.
Beautiful enough for you?
No.
Digging?
Pictures of us
Here,
going through
take- here.
Depoe Bay.
Okay.
You get those.
Grandma look beautiful enough to go clam digging.
Well, I'm just putting sunblock on.
Okay, well you gotta be beautiful for the clams.
That's because my
To stay beautiful.
Yeah,
my dermatologist.
Yeah, Laura had too.
Marge has got.
Because your dermatologist wants you to look beautiful.
She said I keep my face clear.
Keep your face beautiful.
Yeah.
What kind of sunblock do you have?
50. Okay, here comes the ocean.
Looks like there's a few people out fishing today.
Oh, look at that big wave.
Yeah. It's not too bad though today. It's not real rough.
No, it's not bad.
You know where we're going? Said north is better. Agate Beach.
Oh, I don't know how to get to Agate Beach.
Oh, okay.
Agate Beach on the way to Newport.
That's better than South Beach, huh?
Well, ask your GPS lady.
Okay, she doesn't know this.
Well, you could ask.
Look at that pretty wave. And those waves over there. It's a nice morning this morning. Sun trying to come out. And Julie's missing out. She's in Oklahoma.
Oh, you go down.
Oh, here's a pretty picture. Of the lighthouse. And the ocean. He doesn't even have a shirt on.
Well, he's going surfing.
He's got his wetsuit he'll pull up when he gets there.
Probably gets to.
But he needs to be cool meanwhile. There's that place.
This is where everybody is.
Did they leave us a spot?
I don't think they
I don't
did.
think they did. That's why everybody's parked along the road. There we go. Agate Beach.
Surely somebody didn't stay. There's the buckets.
I got.
After driving about 8 to 10 miles, we reach Agate Beach. This is our final destination where we're going to try our luck at digging razor clams. I haven't dug any razor clams in over 50 years, and so we're going to go down and see what we can find. We find a little hole in the sand and dig, but uh-oh, that's no razor clam. That's a mole crab, or some people call them sand crabs. They burrow into the sand and leave a little hole that you might mistake for a razor clam. As we look up on the rugged, jagged, wind-swept cape above us, we see the reminder of a bygone era of shipping. It's the old lighthouse at Yaquina Head, which is still open for tours, and it's one of the lighthouses that are still in operation due to the amount of electronic equipment. Mostly the sports boats use it for navigation. The hillsides under the lighthouse are still alive with flowers blooming with their brilliant colors, just painting the sea cliffs. We had forgotten how to dig for razor clams. It's been so long since we've dug for 'em that we got none. But anyway, we had a nice trip down there and got to see all the wildflowers and learn a little bit about digging for razor clams. So next time we go, maybe we'll do better. But we're not done yet. They're not going to beat us. We're going on down to the bay and check for bay clams, and we know how to dig them, so there shouldn't be any problem getting us a nice bowl of clam chowder. Oh boy, look what I found. A really nice big cockle. They can be raked or dug or just scratched out of the ground. They're within the first 2 inches of the surface, so they're a very easy one to get. And here's Annette. She's got her limit of clams. This one is a big coal hog, and they're very nice eating. Once we get our limits of clams, Annette goes down and gets a bucket of water, and we'll put them in this ocean water and let them siphon out some of the sand that's in them. That makes them a bit easier to clean, and then we'll have a super nice bowl of clam chowder. We cross a very decorative old bridge across Yaquina Bay where we can look down on the boat harbor and the town of Newport from above. We see the wake. There is still time to go to Slets Bay and dig the purple varnish clams. They're very abundant here, and you don't need a real good low tide. Just if it's a little bit low, that's all you need. Just a very slight low tide. And so the water's coming in, but not far enough, but what we can go dig some of these purple varnish. And they're an invasive species, so there's a real large limit of 72 on the purple varnish. And it looks like we're starting to find them. Looks like maybe they're starting to come around. We dig a little while with just our hands, and we end up with 72 of them for each of us. And then we take them home and let them siphon the mud out by putting salt water over them. We set them in a cool place and let them siphon the mud out all night long. And then the next day, we pop them in the oven until they open their shell. And when they open their shell, you just pop them in your mouth and eat them, guts, feathers, and all. And wow, are they tasty little guys. They're so small you can't do much else with them. The most effective way to get these guys is just reach into the sand and you'll feel a little something hard, and that'll be these clams. And it really doesn't take you long to get your 72 clam limit. You just reach in and feel for them. And after all, it's just clean dirt and a little bit of but it's mostly just sand, a real fine ground sand. After we get them, we go back and decide it's time to have a clam feed. So Marge'll put them on a cookie sheet after they've siphoned the sand out of them, which takes about overnight. and then you slide them in the oven at about 350 degrees. And when they open, you just pop them in your mouth and eat them. Jack seems to think maybe he might even try one. Marge wrestles with an unfamiliar oven to her for a little bit, and then pretty soon she'll check it to see if they're starting to pop open, which is an indication they're...
Oh, they are! They're starting to open up.
Well, hand us one. Let's see how it is.
Whoops. Just a second, I'll get something. Look at them. Popping open.
Yeah, they're
A lot of them.
starting to open.
Okay. And here, I'll take one of these little ones. See this little baby one?
Yeah.
There. Okay.
How is it?
It's a little crunch. I'll get something to put. What happens when...
You didn't want to go.
It's time for round 2 of the razor clam digging, and it looks like Jack wants to go really bad. He'd have a lot of fun down there on the beach, barking at people and fighting with other dogs. That'd just be great sport. But we're going to a little bit of a different spot this time. We're heading down by Newport to Agate Beach, but we're going to go to Agate Beach State Park.
Oh, where's the beach access place?
It must be down on the other end.
There's the restroom. Oh, there it is.
You see, oh, there's a tunnel. Yeah. I guess we can park in one of those spots, huh?
Oh yeah, there's the tunnel.
Oh yeah, it dumps you right out on the beach.
I want to take pictures. See, I just put my phone in that bag.
The beach!
Here, I'll take a picture.
We're coming armed to the hilt with another type of clam digging thing. It's called a clam gun. And what it is, a piece of aluminum irrigation pipe with a little hole in it to let the air out. And then you hold your thumb over the hole and pull it up and pull the sand out. We found that it was a very interesting looking device, but we found it did not work worth a darn. We get out on Agate Beach by going under the tunnel the state parks are providing, and there it is, a clam hole. This is the donut clam hole. Annette puts her newfangled device over the hole, wiggles it into the sand, and then she's got to remember to put her finger over the hole and lift it up. And out comes the sand. But that guy is deep. they're one of the clams that actually move. And so when you get after them, they'll go down about 3 feet deep or something like that. There she takes out shovelful after shovelful to get down to the clam. And then pretty soon she feels the device hit the clam, which it's supposed to just go midway on the clam and pull them out, but it didn't quite work that way. So then there's only one thing to do. It's go after them by hand. Sure enough, she came up with our first razor clam. So everybody's getting their adrenaline up. Whoops! Marge forgot to hold her finger over the hole on the little device, and so she did no good. And it wouldn't hurt to weigh another 100 pounds to be able to get that thing in the ground. That was the trouble with it. It went in pretty darn hard. I'm an old-fashioned guy, and I'd just as soon do it the old-fashioned way with a shovel. That way I can see what I'm doing and go after him good. But you dig the hole down a ways and then you get after him by hand, and you gotta hurry because they do move.
That one looks like fun.
Yeah, it does.
You think there's one here?
Well, it looked like it.
Looks like Marge should have brought Jack along to help with the task of digging the clams, all under the witness of the old Yaquina Head lighthouse. But Annette found her a couple anyway, so at least we broke the ice and found a way to dig them. And today wasn't a very good clam day either, so that was pretty good. Well, so much for the clams. It's time to go fishing now. And so I'm going fishing with my grandson, Stephen, and we're going to go out and see if those sneaky old salmon are ready to bite for us. We're launching the boat at very first light at Yaquina Bay. We get in the boat, Stephen starts the motor, and we start making our way out toward the open sea. Stephen's wife, Christian, will be going along with us too, and she really loves to fish. She gets all excited when she feels the jerk on the end of her line that indicates a fish has bitten. The first morning light is getting just a slight bit brighter as we make our way through the boat mooring basin on out toward the sea. Here we see boats of all sizes, shapes, and colors from all over the world tied up to the docks here in Yaquina Bay. Some sailing ships that sail the seven seas, and then some commercial fishing boats as well as sports boats and charter boats. We get out into the open bay, and there we can open the motor up and make a little better time as we feel just only a slight ripple below the keel of his little fiberglass boat. Under the Yaquina Bay Bridge, we look up and we can see some birds have taken the opportunity to nest on the pilings around and also on the bridge girders underneath. The sun is slowly beginning to rise skyward as we pass the old frame lighthouse at Yaquina Bay, and that's one of the very oldest of the lighthouses. And fortunately, the state parks have fixed it up where you can go in and tour it. As we get further out between the jetties, we feel that roll under our keel, which indicates we're at sea. We've crossed the bar, and now we're at sea, and we can feel a little bit of a roll under the keel as we slap and hammer our way northward to try to find a place to put the crab pots out at sea. I was a little concerned about putting the crab pots at sea because you have a lot of currents there. Unless you have a heavy weighted pot, it could drift it away. But today, there's only about a foot or two difference in the tides, so there will be no current, and the sea is about as calm as you'll ever see it. So we'll move up and find a good spot with the depth sounder, and we have to take instrument readings on where we put these pots out so we can come back to them. After all, we're putting them out in the largest ocean in the world, and so we need to have some idea where they are because we can't search the whole ocean for them. Stephen skillfully moves us up to where we'll put out pot number 2. It's already baited, and so we'll toss it over the side into the salty waters of the Pacific Ocean, hoping it'll attract some crabs with a little bit of bait in it, and it's ready to start fishing. We'll put the 3 crab pots out just as the early morning sun clears the horizon, and then we'll be ready to start trolling for some silver salmon. We hear the irregular hum of a well-tuned gasoline engine as it moves us through the briny waters of the Pacific Ocean, and we're looking for some salmon on the depth sounder. And there's a jillion of them in. They're just everywhere here. So we get out to where it looks like a good spot to fish, take a couple more readings, and we're ready to put our lines in the water and just see what we can catch.
Fishing reel. Yeah, the best idea. Right.
Stephen will cut some small pieces of herring, which we'll put on our hooks for bait. We're using flashers and a little device that causes the hook to go down to a certain depth, and then a little piece of herring on the hoochie, and that should be about all. The problem with salmon fishing this day and age, they have to be fin clipped, and you have to use a barbless hook, which can be a little bit of a problem landing one of these feisty little guys. But we're going to put out our gear and we'll catch some. Sure as can be, we'll catch some. Maybe not as many as if we could do it another way, but even if we catch some that aren't fin clipped, we can just release them and go on and see if we can catch one that is. It's important to count the pulls you put the line out so you'll know how deep it is. Unless you've got a line counter on your reel, this is pretty important. You get it down to about the right depth, set the drag, and set it in a pole holder and just let it fish to its heart's content. And we'll troll along and circle around. If we see a fish bite or something, we can circle over it for a few times, and maybe there'll be more. They kind of swim in schools, so you need to find the school of fish and cast into it. It looks like it's going to be a beauty of a day as the early morning sun gets a little intensity to it as it rises over the ground fog of inland. And then it happens. The fish bites on Kristen's pole, and so she's got a battle on her hands to get that guy up to the boat. But it doesn't look like she's feeling much pain in that, as she's smiling from ear to ear and fighting that feisty guy on the end of the line, and he's not about to give up anytime soon. Pretty soon Stephen sticks the net in the water and tries to catch him, but uh-oh, it looks like that guy got away. Well, we'll go on and find another one in just a little bit. We bait the hook up again, throw it out, and sure enough, another one hits, and another one, and another one. But we're having trouble keeping them on the hook. It seems like their hobby of the day is spitting our hook out. But we'll keep at it, and pretty soon there will be a dumb one come along that doesn't spit the hook out, and so we'll probably get one yet.
Put it neutral. This is your pole. Get up.
Well, I don't think lots of them are gonna get one, so I would already
Here. Keep reel. Is it still there?
Yes!
Reel. Keep the tension reel. Yeah, he's there. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. That's a good one too. Nice fish. And he's a hatchery.
So he's all right to keep, huh? Good.
Hand me the gaff.
The what?
The gaff. Feels like it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
It's native?
Yeah, that one is, yeah.
That sucks.
It's a big one too.
We've each caught some salmon, but Stephen's and mine we had to turn loose. Christian's was the only one that was legal to take because it had its fin cut, meaning it was a hatchery fish. So we're going to move on over and see how our crab pots did for the day. The engine roars and the ocean is trying to pour a little bit of its salty contents into our boat in the form of spray. But pretty soon our instruments tell us we're at the crab pot, and so the anticipation is high. We're hoping to have a whole bunch of crabs in the pot. Christian will pull it up, and it feels pretty heavy. We'll see what's in it now. Oh, and it looks good. The crabs are great quality. They're good and firm and really quite large. So we'll go through it. We're only allowed to keep the males that are larger. Everything else goes back. The one right on the right corner of the screen I see from here is a female. But there's a nice big male. Stephen has a little caliper-like thing to measure him with. The guy got back in the trap. I guess he liked it in there, where there was plenty to eat, rather than in the bucket where we're going to take them and cook them and eat them. He's measuring them one after another, and every one that's big enough goes in the bucket that we're keeping them. He checks to make certain they're all males and all the right size. We're doing pretty darn good in that pot, and those are nice big tasty ones from right out in the depths of the ocean. That one was a female, I believe, so it got thrown back. But we got some nice males out of that pot, so we'll move on and check the next pot. Hopefully we'll have some good ones in it as well. We find the float for the pot in just a little bit. We put them kind of in a string so they'll be easier to find there. And the ocean currents are carrying us away just a little, but Stephen will circle around and Christian will grab that pot and pull it from the briny depths of the Pacific Ocean into the boat so we can empty the content and hopefully have some good table fare in it as well. She pulls it up one pull at a time till she gets it right up to the edge of the boat, where she'll grab it and throw it in the boat, and then we can go through it and sort out the crabs that we're going to keep and release the ones we aren't. Like we're going to have a nice crab feed, and these are nice big crabs right straight out of the ocean. It's not very often that it's a calm enough day you can do crabbing at sea, but when you can, that's the very best. You get bigger ones and nicer ones out at sea than you do in the bay, although there's nothing wrong with the bay crabs either. Christian's pulling this up hand over hand, and in it comes. And it's always exciting to see what you're going to get in the crab pot. Looks like another nice bunch of crabs. And every one of them's got that pincher out ready to pinch you. So you've got to get a hold of them the right way if you don't want a good pinching. A smaller one worked its way through the crab pot and down onto the seat. She grabbed him and threw him back in the ocean where he belonged. Looks like we're not doing quite as well in this pot, but we're getting a few. Stephen's measuring them, and so we're getting a few more for our bucket. Everyone has to be checked to make certain it's a male and large enough. And there's one always hanging on to the pot with that claw, and so they can be difficult to get out. Well, we've tried salmon fishing, so we're going to try some bottom fishing, but this isn't something we bargained for. An old whale just appears out of nowhere, and we can hear him snorting and blowing and see the little waves he creates when he comes to the surface. Wow, how neat it is to see a whale out here in the early morning sunshine. He gets up on the surface and messes around a little bit, and then he goes down once again. We'll move on and try to find some bottom fish to catch. Since we weren't doing as well as we could on the salmon, we're going to try to catch a lingcod or something like that. Although we didn't do too bad on the salmon, but those lingcod are just really good eating. And there's another whale. There she blows as he comes to the surface and then dives back down to the briny depths of a reef just off the harbor at Newport, off Yaquina Bay Harbor. We'll now move in to a reef where we should be able to catch some lingcod if they're biting today, and also some rockfish should be there, and they're very good, very good eating. Everyone hangs on as we cross back over the bar into the waters of Yaquina Bay, past the end of the jetty, and then a little bump right on the bar, and we'll be inside where we can try fishing up next to the jetty for some lingcod. And usually Stephen does quite well on lingcod and sea bass and other rockfish here. So we'll get in there and give it a try. No matter what we threw at them, they didn't seem to want to bite. So we're going to go on in. Stephen has to get home real soon. He only had part of a day to fish. So we'll head back under the bridge and into the mooring basin where we can load the boat on the trailer, wash up the boat a little from the salt spray, and then Stephen can head on home. Looks like that person's monkeying with the sailboat. I don't know whether he's getting ready to go to sea or what, but it doesn't matter. We're getting loaded up and we'll be heading home in just a very few minutes.
There's the crab that Stephen and Kristen and Tom got today. And that was a big one.
With my belly full of crab meat, I guess I better get with it and get something done here. And we gotta get this place finished. And right away. This is summer and we should be dedicating our summer to playing. But anyway, Joe came over and we decided, in spite of the work that needed to be done, that there's some clams that needed to be dug. So Joe and I will go down to Annette's little private beach that she has found and see what we can do in the way of digging clams. And Joe felt the neck on one of the gapers or horseneck clams, and so he's going after him here. He removed some of the mud from on top of him. And then there's only one thing left to do. It's just get down on your hands and knees and go after him by hand. And Joe is after him in over elbow deep. And pretty soon he found him, and it was a nice big gaper or horse neck. And then there's another one starting to appear. He starts digging and remove the mud, and then reaches down and twists him out of the sand by hand.
Anywhere, it feels like a razor clamp. Boy. Wow! Is that a nice one or what? That's the boo or the gaper. Let's see, hold him there a second. I'll get his picture. Yeah, that's a nice one. What's he doing? Is he cooperating? Yeah. Is that him? I think so. Yep. Looks like him, doesn't it? Oh, he isn't as big, but he's nice.
You better watch that old seagull, Joe. The first thing when you have your back turned, his head will accidentally get in your bucket, and he'll grab a clam and try to take off with it. Joe has his limit of clams now. We'll wash them up and put them in some salt water to work the sand out of them, and we'll have a really good mess of clam chowder. We have to remember that it's low tide, and we rely on the ocean to feed us at low tide. Very unfortunately, the clams we see here and the scallops, they were all fossils, so no feed there. But we're going to take some of the mussels that we pried off the rocks back, and Joe's going to cook them. He cooks them. He boils them just till their shell comes open, and then he puts them on a cookie sheet and removes the top half of the shell, and then he'll fill it with some lemon juice and butter and cheese, and that orange meat of the mussel really does taste good. And when they're fixed this way, they aren't tough at all. They're just excellent. You can buy these in restaurants in some places. Annette showed up with some friends, and so, of course, they're going to want to go clam digging again. So we better hurry up and get our mussel feed over with and get down and catch some of those clams before the tide comes in to where we can't find them. The tide is kind of a poor tide, so we're going to go after the purple varnish because you don't need a good tide for them, and you can always get your limit of 72 of them no matter when you go. This is an evening tide, so we'll have to take flashlights along and deal with the darkness.
Oh, here's one.
We finally abandon our shovels and get after them the way you should. You just go down there and start feeling in that sand, and you'll just bring them up one right after another as the sun majestically sets over the ocean. And then some of the lights from some of the hotels at Taft start shining on the water, and we can look out to sea and see a bank of clouds hanging over the ocean as we get our clams one right after another.
This is what I've been doing. Postmated on the beach and
Joe and Marge wanted a mess of those excellent mussels like we had the night before. So they're going to go down to the ocean beach and look on some rocks and see if they can find some mussels. They go to a nice protected ocean beach here and walk out at low tide to some of the little sea stacks that are up next to shore. Joe will cross on a few rocks till he gets to the spot where he can go after them. There's all sorts of seaweeds here. Joe even brought some of that bullwhip kelp home, which had drifted up on the shore and just lays there and dries out. So he brought some home, and he's going to make some pickles, which are really good, and they're good and healthy too, from the bullwhip kelp. The ocean has sculptured this pile of rocks, and these rocks are actually sandstone, and they're full of fossils. But Joe has found some nice big mussels here, and he takes a bar and pries them from the rocks. They hang on with what they call a beard, which can be kind of hard to pry off, although you can get it by hand, but it's better to have a little tool. And there he's got some very nice mussels. Just above the group of mussels is a bunch of the gooseneck barnacles, which also are good eating. I think they taste just about like lobster, and so they're a poor man's lobster. Some sea anemones are gripped tightly to the rock, and when the tide comes in, they open up like a beauty of a flower and start combing the water for things they like to eat. The barnacles and mussels as well siphon the water and get little bits of plankton and algae, which they love to eat. There's all sorts of crustaceans on the rocks as you look out toward the sea.
Mussels go over here. We're loaded up and we're ready to go. Okay?
Boy, that is one trophy mussel, huh?
Yeah.
Was he hard to get off the rock?
No, I just use the crowbar.
Ben and I stayed behind and worked on the tile on the kitchen countertops while Marge and Joe went down to get some of those excellent mussels
Remove
off
this.
the bed. The little cabin is starting to look good, like a Pacific Northwest ocean shore cabin should look like. We've got knotty pine and some exposed open beam feelings to it. And, uh-oh, Marge broke her cell phone. She threw the couch back on. She crashed that couch down on her cell phone so hard that it sounded like an atom bomb went off, and everybody looked.